So it's my great pleasure to introduce Georgia Sarquella-Brugada. Many of you here are also for the summer school, since there's a lot of cardiac modeling going on and so on. So many of you, and when you look in cardiac modeling, there's a lot of electrophysiology modeling. So this is like the typical thing that many of us would start modeling. So that's why we said, like, okay, let's go back to the basics in some ways and have an electrophysiologist coming to talk to us, but not just an electrophysiologist, but Georgia is a pediatric electrophysiologist, so both pediatric cardiologist and electrophysiologist. And you can ask yourself, it's like, but what does it matter whether you have like kids or adults? It's all the same. It's like arrhythmias in the heart. But I can guarantee you, and certainly Georgia will show us, that this is very, very, very different. First of all, kids are small, which makes a big difference. And everything we have in medicine is made for big people, going from a pacemaker to a catheter and things like that. So this is not trivial at all. And secondly, unfortunately also, there's kids with genetic diseases that never make it to adulthood, but have a lot of problems and really need treatment and is very much unrecognized and especially understudied. So all these rare diseases still is a big, big problem. And I think there's a big chance also for us as modelers and engineers to help there, because there are not many patients. You can't do a study like the previous one with 17,000 or more kids in order to look at asthma, for example. You can't do that for electrophysiology. So we need different approaches for this. And I think Georgia will tell us a little bit of her practice, what she sees, and especially what the needs are, and so we can rethink our way of working. Thank you very much for coming, Georgia.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you so much for letting me be here and to give me, as I said to you before, 1 hour to share with you my experience and all what we do, but mainly all what we need. And I think this is the best forum to claim, please, for ideas and to think about this particular population, which is children with arrhythmic problems. As he said, this is not, and you will see along the presentation, this is not normal things. There are very few centers that do work with pediatric cardiac electrophysiology, and I'm proud to be part of it. So let me introduce you where I work. This is Hospital Sant Joan de Déu. This is exclusively pediatric hospital. We have maternity and children hospital. It's a non-profit organization. And it has even it's a private hospital, it's a non-profit, and we have an agreement with public health systems. So let's say 90% of our patients come from public health system. For the ones who do not belong to our country, we are proud and we are very lucky to be able to give free healthcare to everyone, no matter the origin, the race, the gender, if they work or if they don't. So it means that we don't need to think about if they can pay for something in order to offer them. This is, I have to tell that I have been working in the States, this is something which makes a big difference on the everyday practice. And it's a university hospital, so we have to follow the rules of seriosity and teaching and training. And that's very important as well, because we have plenty of people training every day in our hospital, and that's important for our, I think, our everyday practice as well. So just to let you know a little bit of our numbers, we see more than 350,000 patients per year, and we have 300 beds, which is for a general hospital, it's not much, but for a pediatric hospital, it's enormous. This is the biggest pediatric hospital in Spain and the 4th in Europe. So it's big thing. And we have a story, and it's important to know how we got there, because you will understand why we are in the position we are. It started 150 years ago as a charity hospital in the center of Barcelona. For the ones from here, it's where now it's the Illa Diagonal, which is the commercial, the shopping mall. Then it moved to where it's now placed, which is up in Esplugues. It's at going to the airport. Okay, you can see it there, and it became a general pediatric hospital. So it was like a big outpatient thing with very few specialties. In 2004, they said, okay, let's make it tertiary. Let's go for a specialization, but holding this mass of, basic pediatric healthcare. But the crisis arrived, okay? And I think the crisis has been a nightmare for many people, but the economical crisis made some people think further that they would be. You go out of your comfort zone and you have to do things like they are creative. So from, I think, 2010, they started to just strengthen the bell around our stomachs, and they end up deciding that they would promote some specialties in order to make them more important. Like, that was against what was being done in all hospitals, that they were cutting. They said, okay, let's choose 6 specialties and let's make them grow. Let's make them pioneers in their field. So that's when, focused on high specialization, research, and keeping this humanization, being humble and being honest with our patients and our families, they decided that we had to go for 6 specializations, which heart was part of it, which I'm glad that they decided that heart was part of it, okay? So, and they focused on that. And the other ones were less important. They did not invest on them, and even they cut on them, just in order to promote our. So we end up having 23 what we call CESUR, which is National Reference Center specialties. Like, for example, pediatric electrophysiology. We are the only national reference center in Spain. That means that if a patient needs some healthcare in pediatric electrophysiology, they can come to our hospital, even though they are from another community. And with the new European reference networks, which are being promoted by the European Commission, we participate in 9, which is one of the biggest numbers, actually, that's the biggest number in Spain. And we lead, I personally lead I coordinate the Pediatric Cardiac Rare Diseases reference network, European reference network. So why that's important? Because then we start building a net, which makes everything more easy, and the hospital understands why we are there, we have dialogues with there, and of course, this makes everything much easier. But the hospital always thinks about the patient. We are patient-focused, patient-centered. So, and we participate what we call the liquid hospital, which means that patient and hospital interaction is like fluid. There are no barriers. Patients participate in decisions, important decisions. Patients are there, families are there. For example, parents can be part or can be present during a resuscitation, which is big thing, okay? So, and so patient association, this is the one for sudden death arrhythmic syndrome patient association, they participate also in decisions, and they take part of everything. And that makes us work in another way. I mean, we cannot just think about ours. We cannot build up a protocol, a clinical trial, without their opinion. And that's important because we are obliged to be more ethical, not only having this ethical ethical committee approval, we need to be really there. We need to make things be understandable for patients because they are part of the process of designing it. So who are we? The Arrhythmia Inherited Cardiac Diseases and Sudden Death Unit was created by Josep-Brugada 20 years ago. We celebrate our 20th anniversary, and I joined in 2011. So he had done a lot of work alone for those years. Now I'm proud to have a big team, like a small team, but a very joint one and a very hard worker team, which consists of people in training, which is like Jose, but also psychologists, social workers, a patient assistant, people very specialized in arrhythmia imaging, and of course to having the lead and expertise of someone who's a leader in this field, which is electrophysiology. So this is part of the team, and we have a lot of fellows in training and people like residents and people coming for short stays. And that makes life really easier, but we see in the unit more than 3,000 patients per year in outpatient clinic, and we do more than 400 procedures per year. That's a lot. So I'm going to share with you what we do. So what's our common objective of the unit? It's to eradicate sudden death in the world. Wow, that's big, huh? But we want to make it simple, and that's even bigger, because I think, and as you will find at the end of my talk, that this is what it is. That's what our goal is. We have to do all that, but reachable for everyone, okay? So, following what one of my big teachers or important people that influence on me, which is Professor Jean-Claude Fouron from University of Montreal. He was one of people I trained in Montreal for a while, and he was from IT, and he said, what you don't understand is stronger than you. And this is a very common set in IT. And that's all it's about. We need to understand because we want to be stronger. So let's try to make you see, or I'll try to share with you what I do so you can give me back some of your expertise to try to have everything understandable. We will talk about facts, needs and dreams of pediatric electrophysiology. And let's start with the facts. We have the cardiac conduction system. You all know, probably much better than me, that this is let's say, almost perfect structure, which is the heart. Let's say it's perfect, okay? And we have, everything starts here, which is the sinus node. The electricity goes around the atrium, arrives on the AV node, and goes down the ventricles, the septum, and goes up to the lateral walls of the ventricle. And that's very important, because if something's wrong with that, we will have either arrhythmias or bradycardias or tachycardias, and things that the motion of the heart will be altered. How do we study that? This is Eindhoven, that with his first ECG machine. This is kind of funny, because seeing what we can do nowadays, I always say to our colleagues, okay, you have to do lots of ECGs. I mean, he has a lot of merit. To do an ECG like that was really difficult. So we need to use that machine a lot, which is much, much easier now, which is this, okay? Or even, you will see later, even smaller machines that will help us a lot. In fact, we will have the information that explains how electricity moves in the heart, how it goes from up to down, from back to front, and from right to left. And this is the axis of the heart, and how it moves. And every single part of the ECG will explain us which type of structure in the heart is analyzing by that moment. We have the P wave, which explains how the atrial contracts. Then we have the Q wave, which means how it goes, the electricity towards the interventricular septum. We have the R wave, which explains the movement of the action potential up to the lateral walls. And then we will start repolarization by analyzing the T wave. And that's important, because everything all is about this. And we will try to understand every single part of the problem just seeing at the ECG. Which arrhythmias can we have, and what do we have? We have anatomical substrate, external or out of the patient substrate, and genetic substrate. If we go to anatomical substrate, this is the normal movement of the electricity in the heart. Wow, that's not the normal. Okay, the video should not be moving like that, but we have the electricity moving down just from one point. The only part that it's that the electricity can go through the AV node in normal hearts. Why is that so important? Because this is like something that makes the electricity stop. When if the atrium goes crazy, this guy here will stop the electricity and say, okay, I'm gonna just let pass 1 out of 3 impulse I have from here. Why is that so important? Because when we have, for example, accessory pathways, this kind of isolation disappears. And this guy will stop the electricity. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, this guy will stop electricity, but this guy has no stop here. Okay, there's no toll here. So the electricity will go. So at some points, we will have what we call reentrant circuit that will make a tachycardia. That's why it's so important, this isolation, and to try to isolate this heart in order to avoid tachycardia. We have other type of tachycardia. We have, I don't know why this is not working, but it was working when we tried. Okay, so we can have some other points which are not sinus node, which give beats, normally rapid beats from other part of the heart, and that provokes atrial tachycardia. Okay, but it goes only to the ventricle through the AV node because there is no accessory pathway. Or we can have others like atrial flutter, which has a reentrant circuit through the atrium, which is this right atrium, left atrium, and can provoke rapid reentrant circuits that will also be stopped here at the AV node before it goes through the ventricles. Finally, the big one, with that atrial fibrillation, this is an awful arrhythmia. We almost don't see it in pediatrics because this is something for grown-ups, okay? We don't really care about them, but adults do a lot. Why? Because most of them related either to hypertension or endurance sports, as you will see, but mainly hypertension and all these cardiovascular risk factors. That what provokes is a chaotic movement of action potentials and from little contraction, mostly in the pulmonary veins, that provoke the fibrillation of the atrium, which will tend to have like to have a very chaotic rhythm in the atrium. Okay. Then we have external substrates. There are other things that can provoke arrhythmias, mainly congenital heart disease, malformation of the hearts. Most of them genetically based, but we don't really understand all of the genetics for congenital heart disease. But mainly, there's a heart that has either less pieces that this heart should have, or more pieces that it should have, or the pieces that the heart has, they are misplaced, okay? That's the meaning of congenital heart disease. And some of these congenital heart disease provoke by themselves arrhythmias. Why? Because, for example, in this part, which is, for example, Epstein's anomaly, the tricuspid valve that should be here up in this level, like the mitral valve, it's moved towards the apex. That provokes that there are reentrant circuits in the atrium and accessory pathways that will provoke arrhythmias. So the disease itself has a tendency to have arrhythmias. Then we have for example, congenitally corrected transposition of great arteries, or what we call LTGA, which normally the AV node is misplaced, so it will provoke arrhythmias as well. But in congenital heart disease, we also have scars provoked by the surgeon that provokes a scar to operate the heart, that these are the perfect substrate to have arrhythmias surrounding the scar. So either inside of the heart, if there is a hole, we put a patch here, there will be scars like reentrant circuits in the muscle or in the scar itself in the atrium, because that's where we put the cannules to operate the heart. So if the surgeon does not expand the opening, the scar itself, towards a non-conducting point, we will have a reentrant circuit around the scar. These are the type of arrhythmias, either atrial arrhythmias, which are, I mean, you know, they are annoying, but they are okay. But the most scary ones are the ventricular arrhythmias that are related mainly to those patients that have been operated at the ventricular level, that they have scars in the ventricle, that they can end up with a sudden death because of a ventricular arrhythmia, rapid ventricular arrhythmia. Of course, these scars not only provoke arrhythmias, the conduction, the conduction of those ventricles is abnormal, so the contraction is abnormal, so the malfunction of those ventricles are abnormal. And of course, there's going to be a desynchrony in those hearts that is going to be very important, not only for the contraction itself, but also for provoking more instability that can provoke more arrhythmia. So the problem itself it's like increases itself the risk of those arrhythmias. Finally, there are other like drugs or other problems that can affect the heart. For example, alcohol can provoke dilated cardiomyopathy, which will end up having also arrhythmias because the heart becomes thinner and the electricity goes. There are kind of mini scars there that can do reentrant circuits that can provoke more arrhythmias. Also, chemotherapy. That's a big super specialty in cardiology, which is the long-lasting, the long follow-up effects of chemotherapy in those hearts that receive, for example, during childhood chemotherapy. They would affect the contractility and they will provoke desynchrony at 10, 15, 20 years later. So even though the cancer is cured, they can have late presentation heart problems, and that's very important now. Everybody's trying to have super specialty or people really specialized on that, because those hearts have to be followed really well. And we don't, it's a big thing if we just stop with ejection fraction. I mean, that's not good anymore. We have to go further. We have to study synchronization. We have to study motion wall analysis to try to see any kind of subtle abnormality of those hearts. And finally, some infections like Chagas disease or many others that can provoke holes, really big holes in the heart that just provoke this tiny bud here, which does a lot of harm because this is an explanted heart before a heart transplantation. Of course, if you have holes, when electricity tries to go through here, it cannot go there, so it starts doing reentrant circuits and provoke tachycardia, ventricular tachycardias, okay? So there are a bunch of bad things that can affect the heart, but there is a good thing, which is a sport, and we all know it's good and it's cardioprotective and whatever, but we know that endurance sport, like marathon, ultramarathon training, done on certain hearts, not all of them, can affect the heart and the contractility. And there are mouse models for that and have been already published and ultra studied there, which is the highest risk of arrhythmias in ultramarathon and marathon runners and other endurance sports, because there is fibrosis to try to adapt to this rapid heart rate, this rapid contraction, and this adaptation and modulation of the heart to the sport. I mean, adapting the heart to the sport. But also, there is some physiologic adaptation that can mimic some of the diseases that can affect the heart, and there is there's a whole specialization trying to find which patients in the gray zone belong to either physiological changes or pathological ones. And this is another big field that we are working and trying to differentiate those patients having hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, if it's a response to exercise or it's the first manifestation of a disease. And this is something we are studying really hard, because if it's a disease, we have to stop that person for doing sports. And can you imagine that we stop Messi for doing sports because he has a hypertrophic heart? Okay, just think about that. I don't have the answer. Okay, and then finally we have a genetic substrate. mainly there are two big things, like cardiomyopathies and channelopathies. For cardiomyopathies, we know that there are hearts that are thicker, which is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which are thinner but dilated cardiomyopathy, or arrhythmogenic, that there is a substitution of the muscle tissue, the myocardial tissue, for fat and fibrosis. This is also, again, fibrosis. It's the perfect substrate for arrhythmias. So they can either die for arrhythmias here. Normally, there are two types of death for those people having cardiomyopathies. Heart failure, the pump is not working anymore, which is a very long-lasting thing, which is very painful and dramatic and whatever, or sudden death, because you have an arrhythmia and you die, okay? We have to try to avoid both of them. But the arrhythmia field tries to detect which patients having the disease are at risk of having an arrhythmia, therefore needing, for example, an ICD, an implanted cardioverter defibrillator. That's something that it can help you try to stop your ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia when you have it. But sometimes macroscopic studies show us normality, and we have to go to histology. You know, it's quite difficult to get a piece of heart. Mostly we can have heart biopsies from living bodies. I mean, we can do, for example, biopsies, but if it's a patchy disease as the arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy, maybe we do a biopsy of a piece which is not affected, so we will have a normal histology on there, but the heart has a disease. So we try to focus on imaging, MRI, and other tools, and these are things that are growing and being very deeply studied to see how soon I can go on the disease manifestation to be able to diagnose it in order to risk stratify my patients. And that's difficult because, I mean, it's not easy, but it's very easy to implant an ICD, okay? Technically, it's nothing, okay? The big thing is to decide who needs it. Why? Because implanting an ICD has consequences, has psychological consequences, has some side effects, having inappropriate shocks. It's very painful and it's dramatic, okay? And also we have risk of infections of having an ICD inside because we have a lead inside the heart and we can have endocarditis and things like that. So we need to know which patients are at real risk of that. And risk stratification is one of the big problems we have to know who or who does not need an ICD. So as soon as we can detect the disease, we will follow the patient according to the disease, the disease stage, either if it's macroscopic, microscopic, ultra microscopic, or genetically. And that's the part we are studying. And that's something which goes close to the second point, which is channelopathies. Channelopathies are my favorite part, I have to admit. And it's based mainly because the action potential of the heart or any cell, it's based on currents that go through channels, like sodium channel at the first part, potassium channels in the second, third, in the first, second, and third phase, and the exchange of ions like sodium, potassium, and calcium. And everything is that balance, okay? So genetic disorders in these channels, that in the proteins encoding, in the genes encoding for these proteins, will end up having arrhythmic problems because currents, ionic currents, will not flow correctly. So we will have imbalances, okay, in the sodium, calcium, or potassium that will provoke arrhythmias. Okay, so channelopathies are familiar arrhythmogenic syndromes that are related to pathogenic alterations in genes encoding for ion channel or its associated proteins that manifest with electrocardiographic abnormalities, not always, with no structural disease, at least macroscopic or microscopic, not always. With an incomplete penetrance, so in the same family, the same gene, the same mutation provokes different diseases, okay, not easy, with a variable expressivity, okay, and changing along life. And patients can be asymptomatic, can be only mutation carriers being asymptomatic. They can present with just palpitations, they can present as syncope, or they can present as sudden death as first manifestation of the disease. So knowing who is a carrier is very important. And that's why genetics is so important here, because it would help with the diagnostic, the prevention, and the treatment for those patients. So genetics as well, it's a big thing, not only for diagnostic, but you will see at the end as a treatment. We have four main diseases, mainly Brugada syndrome, catecholaminergic, polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, short QT, and long QT syndrome. Long QT is the largest one. It's the first one that was described. The more incidence is 1 out of 2,000, so it's not that rare, okay? And it can be also genetically determined, but can be acquired. There are some drugs that prolongs your QT interval. And what we see in the ECG, and I have not brought many ECGs because that's not the point of our talk, it's what we see is that the point from the Q on the ECG to the end of the T, it's prolonged compared to those numbers that are the normal values for general population. The first problem is that if we go for certain populations like sportive people, values of QT interval are longer, so we have a big problem again with those sportive people that having this kind of borderline QT intervals. That do they have long QT or do they have adapted QT interval? So we need to stop this guy or we can leave him alone. So that's again another problem, and we don't really know everything about long QT. So the thing is that, sorry, the patients can be asymptomatic or they can present as sudden death. And of course, you have to know that because it's a major cause of sudden death in young people. Young, it's below 30. So it's one of the big diseases we have to look after and try to prevent. So there are many studies that we are performing. For example, in my hospital, we are doing universal ECG screening for neonates in order to detect long QT syndrome. That's important. Why is it difficult? Once again, one need that I'm asking you, that sometimes the neonate, the heart rate of the neonate, it's really high. Sometimes it's 150, 160. And for either the formulas to correct the QT interval are not appropriate, and the ECG machine itself with its software normally does not detect the intervals correctly. So we have a lot of problem, or even false positive or false negative, and there is a lack of information on that, and a lack of tools helping ECG detection for neonates. So that's put on the list of the things that we need. Okay, why is that important? Genetics here, because if we talk about what's the genetic basis of long QT, we will see that 75% of all long QT patients belong to these three genes here, but that accounts only for 75%. When we see that, and that's important to understand the pathophysiology of long QT, we see that this is a normal QRST ECG beat. Okay, and if we go through the translation for action potential, we see that the potassium ion channel, it takes mainly to the second and third phase of the action potential. So when we have a loss of function in potassium channels, we will have a prolongation of the QT interval. Okay, and if we have sodium channel disease with a gain of function on sodium channels, we will have also a prolongation of the QT interval. Why is this so important? Because drugs needed to correct that are different if we are based on a potassium channel a long QT syndrome or a sodium long QT syndrome. So cardiac electrophysiology in the bench, in the lab, it's very important to try to rule out some medications. We have solution for that, but we don't have a good solution for these guys here. But that accounts for 75%, but we have 15 other genes related to that, and we don't have a clue what to do with them, okay? Because there are many intermediate pathways for those other types of subtypes of long QT that are still we lack of drugs to try to solve that. But that only accounts for 5%. The rest, okay, other genes we don't know, CNV, so copy number variants or other mechanisms. And that's where the business is. The business, what I mean, it's that or the study should go, should point. Why? Because that accounts for 25% of the patients, and they kill this thing here kills people, and we don't have a solution for that. So, what's all about sudden death? Sudden death can happen in young children, what it's called the sudden infant death syndrome, in young adults or sport people. We believe if we close our eyes that either only football players die of sudden death, because that's what the news told us. Why? Because they have cameras there. But there are people dying every day in this country, 30,000 every year of Spanish people die suddenly because of a sudden death, and we can do something for them. Okay, sudden death is an unexpected natural death, that happens in an apparently healthy individuals. We say that 85% of sudden death have a cardiac origin. It's the leading cause of death in Western countries, and the incidence, it can be very variable. What is important, it's when it's over 55 years of age, normally it's ischemic, it's something that stops, or it's like atherosclerosis and coronary heart disease, but in young adults, below 35, it has a genetic cause. And that's important because we can be able to detect it, or we should be able to detect it. When we talk only about children, of course, the incidence is much, much lower, thanks God. But it can happen at any age, newborns, infants, adolescents, fetuses. But what is important, it has a tremendous impact in families and society. There is panic. I mean, we are not prepared to overcome to our children. First we die, then our children die. When the story goes the other way, that's something where we are not prepared in our hearts. But 2019, it's still an unsolved challenge in the practice of forensic pathology for three main reasons. There are inaccessible reports because it belongs, when someone dies suddenly, that case goes to the judge. The judge has no interest in finding the cause. Just they want to exclude that murder. That's it. When the murder is excluded, they don't care. Okay, no one to judge, that's okay. We just go for the next one. We, as doctors, have to push judges to say, okay, we need to go further with that death. We need to know what happened, okay? In some cases, there is no autopsy. Still in Spain, there are many people that think that, oh, thanks God, someone signed for the natural death document, so they did not do an autopsy. Come on, that was your last chance to know what happened to your relative who died, to your loved one who died. So maybe we can diagnose something that can be really useful for your family. Okay, but still there is something we have to go through that. And sometimes we have, what we called white autopsy. We have nothing there. Okay, it seems everything is normal. Then that's the moment we have to think about channelopathies. Remember, normal hearts, structurally normal hearts. We cannot do ECGs because the heart is not beating anymore. Okay? Okay. Okay, so Why do children die? Mainly for congenital heart disease, either prior or after surgery, for cardiomyopathies, coronary artery anomalies, aortic root, but mainly channelopathies, okay? That's why channelopathy study, understanding how channel works, ion channel work, it's very important to rule out those things to try, and as being familiar, to rule out who is affected by channelopathies and who's not. Why is so important, that point? Because we have included what we called molecular autopsy in autopsy reports. We do gene panels in order to rule out channelopathies. What's the problem? That in normal hearts, that's all the genes are related, but in abnormal hearts, we don't have the rule of one gene, one disease, that we can have one gene and not knowing what to do with that. And that's the big thing now in genetics and molecular genetics nowadays, that we can run lots of gene panels and we don't have a clue what we are looking for. And we can provoke panic to those families. So genetics is a very important point. And biogenetics and bioinformatics to rule out what's the importance on that, it's very, very important. So, which are the needs? And I mean, I have gone through some needs now, but our patients, remember, they are like this. We cope with premature babies, even fetuses, having arrhythmic problems, but their body grows and their physiology changes. I always say that internal medicine specialists, they understand they study one pathophysiology, okay? We need to learn at least 5, because it's not the same like the first trimester fetus, the third trimester fetus, the newborn, which is premature, the newborn, which is not premature, and the toddlers and infants and adolescents. So we need to understand 5 types of pathophysiology or physiology to understand pediatrics, okay? So everything changes, and we need tools and that then can help us in every step of our patients. So, okay, first point, how do we do an ECG to a baby? They move, they cry, they don't stay still if we say stop. They don't. So sometimes this is like high tech, no? We have to give a baby bottle to them. So just the first point, having an ECG performed, it's also difficult. So we need to, this is nonsense. Since Eindhoven, we have new machines doing ECGs, but we have cables everywhere. Can you imagine these babies moving around? Why do we need to have cables? I don't understand. We still need cables to do electrodes, to do the ECGs. Is there any other way to do that in order to avoid that? We have different physiologies. Since the heart grows, because the body grows, we need to understand how the action potential goes and how the conduction system works. And we need to adapt the tools to those hearts. But when we are in the belly, because we are in a fetus situation, all the physiology is changed. And we need to understand how those fetuses work in order to understand which arrhythmias or which problems they present. How do we assess heart rhythm in the fetus? We cannot put an ECG on the fetus. There are let me just try to say it. I've never seen one of those where are cardio-electromagnetogram, which is something, there are 3 in the world, that can perform ECGs to a fetus. There are 3 in the world. It's a huge machine, only for experimental purposes. So how do we interpret rhythm disturbances in a fetus? Well, we have echo, which is perfect, because, well, perfect. It's not perfect, but it's the best we have. What we see is that, okay, if we put our proof here with echo, and we see that the aorta shows us the flow going out, and the superior vena cava shows us the flow going in by putting our proof here in a pulsed Doppler mode, we can have either those tracings here that can maybe, relate the P with this A curve and this B to this QRS. Okay, this is fine. It beats at 170, okay? So let's make it bigger. Let's see some examples. This is a normal rhythm, A and B. Sometimes the fetus goes up, it goes down, it needs to stay still. Sometimes we have tachycardias that we see that the P wave and the QRS are one on top of the other. That means that we can interpret here that there is a reentrant circuit, and this tachycardia is provoked by a reentrant circuit. And this is a beautiful one, which is we see the A, the P is here, P, 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 and the QRSs go wherever they want without taking into account. That's a complete AB block, okay? So that's a funny way to try to understand how it moves, which is the electric consequences, which are contractions, which is the electrical consequences of a cardiac problem. And then we can go back to see, okay, this can be what I can imagine in my head how the ECG would be, because I don't have an ECG. So we need tools to interpret that. And this is obstetricians work really hard on that, and it's very nice to see their works on trying to improve, but everything is based on imaging. Then we have home monitoring. That's another point that's very important for our patients. Why? Sorry. Because it avoids hospital visits. Children don't want to be ill, They don't, they want to play, they want to go to school. Why should I go to the hospital? It has a big impact on them. So if we give something to them that avoids them going to the hospital, they are less ill, and that's important. We have daily information. If we home monitor a child or an adult, we will have, daily information without having them every day there. And we have long-lasting. So it depends on what we want to see. We can use either one or another tool. We have the whole, that's my girl, okay? She's my daughter. She was very proud of that. But that 2 hours later, she was taking it out. This is a 24-hour Holter device. This is a very old thing. Probably many of you have worn one of those. You have information for 24 hours. Okay. If you ever tried one of those, it's itchy. You're like this all the time. Imagine a child. 2 hours later, she was very proud of that photo. But 2 hours later, I saw the device on the table. Okay. That was so difficult. And I was wondering, wow, since that moment, I prescribed like 1/3 of the ones that I was prescribing. Because I said, wow, that's difficult. Right. Then there are, midterm things. If for that we would use information for example, for something that happens every day. Every day you have palpitations. Okay, let's put a 24-hour Holter. But if something happens every month, the chance of having putting a 24-hour Holter and catching it, it's very low if it's only once per month. So we need something like longer. This is another device. This is something handmade, coming from adults. Nothing is prepared for children, as you may understand. So this is something belonging to adults that a mother who knew how to sew a lot adapted to her child and said, oh, that's a good thing. So we end up having it like commercially by the same company that gave us this sample to us. And finally, we have a longer lasting devices that can be implanted and can give us some information. Let's see some examples. 24-hour Holter. That's great. This was a child. This is not my daughter, thanks God. Okay, this is a child, normal basic ECG, but suddenly, with the stress, she starts having a ventricular extrasystole. Quite often, let's say, even bigger ones, and that one is a huge ventricular tachycardia, provoking a syncope. And she was having that 5 to 10 times per day. We could catch that's catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, responding to adrenaline. Every moment she was stressed by something, she would present with a ventricular tachycardia. This is life-threatening, right? So it was happening every day. With just one 24-hour Holter, we could diagnose her. Well, for the T-shirts, okay, these were the idea that we go from the 24-hour Holter to something, longer. That's her, that's Carla, and that's how her mother saw everything, and that's what these guys decided to build, pediatrics. When we see pediatric, a subtitle of pediatrics, we kind of cry, because we never have pediatric things with us. Why is it important? Because they wear this, and they are supposed to, they can wear it for 2 months, they say. Don't trust them, okay? Nobody's wearing that. Even you can wash it, then you charge. Nobody stands 2 months. Maybe if they are very conscious, but children are not conscious. After a while, they'll take it out, they move. It's the best thing we have, but still not perfect at all. Okay, we have nice tracings though, huh? And this is, even now we have a 3-lead thing, which is even better. These guys, really, they work really hard, and we are proud of them that at least they thought on children, but still there's some things, some points that have to be improved, but not bad. We could diagnose this nice ventricular tachycardia, polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. And finally, sorry for that, we have these long-lasting devices which go subcutaneously. Once again, even though we had this big thing which was like a USB, okay, that was impossible to put in a child. A small child, it came out and whatever. We put it under skin. They came out with this small device. This is the ratio, which is like something thinner, more feasible, injectable. So, and carrying this, which is a home monitoring system that we could have in implanted devices, which lasts 3 years. The battery lasts 3 years. We could have daily information, very convenient for our patients. It's not perfect because it's still a little bit too thick, but much better. We have implanting tools. If someone is scared of blood, just close your eyes right now. Okay, this is what it's the device to inject the device. We do just a small 3 millimeters hole, which is like this, and we inject it inside, and we close it with glue. Okay. It's perfect, no stitches, nothing to take out, they don't care. And instead of putting where the company says to put it here, can you believe the child doing this all the time, all the artifacts that we would have? We put it here between the ribs, and we see very nice tracings. Those nice tracings here, those nice tracings of a bradycardia, oops, sorry for the title, tachycardias, sinus tachycardia, some extra beats, some ugly polymorphic tachycardias. Those are patients of us. Everything would give us a lot of information, and that's very good. That's a big improvement for us. And then we have event recorders, something that happens just from time to time, that we can have, all these wearables, all these watches. Now Apple Watch has an application for ECG recordings, so it's great. We have that. Actually, my phone is there. I always carry one of those, and it has been perfect for many people that I have seen, not many, maybe 10, that I have seen, in the airport, wherever someone faints, I just put there, you see that it's beating, things go smoother, much more smoothly, that it would go if someone faints and you don't know if it's beating, sometimes you don't find the pulse. So it helps me, When we do resuscitation, we need to follow what we call ABC, which is airway, breathing, cardiac, okay? With that, it's from AliveCore, it's called AliveCore. The A, for me, it's AliveCore, because I put that, if it beats and it has sinus rhythm, it's okay. Then I can breathe normally, okay? So this has helped me a lot. And even, we sometimes put it on the chest of newborns. That's my hen, and that's a baby in the consultation that the mother was, we have been following him as a fetus for tachycardias, and we normally in those patients, we give one AliveCore to those for the families, because they are very stressed to have their newborn at home, maybe with tachycardias. So we give one of those to them so they can record when they feel panic, and they can send the tracing to us. But of course, the child cannot do this, and we put on the chest, and we have very nice tracings as well. Okay? So Next thing, it's all the wearables, all the apps that we have with us that will give us a lot of information. We need to know how to manage with that data. This is important because are we building people, or are we creating people absolutely addicted to what their heart rate application says? Because I have had many patients saying, oh, you know, twice a day I check my child's heart rate, and you know, today it was like 5 points lower than normally. Really? That's the reason for consultation? So we need, I mean, we have tools, some tools, not adapted to children, but what to do with these results, or what to do with this data, and that's something important. Now all of you are checking your heart rate, right? Okay. So, and finally go for treatments. Oh my goodness, already 1 hour? Okay, it's gonna be okay. So drugs, we don't have many drugs. Almost none of the drugs are proven for children, and we use them off-label. Second, that was our European guidelines that we coordinated to see, and pharmacological, it's a big part, and all the time says off-label use, off-label use, off-label use. Okay, nobody's going to give his child to be tested for a drug, of course, and as Bart said, we have little numbers. Ablation, that's the big thing we do. We try to cure arrhythmias, cure, that's beautiful word in health, cure using ablation. So what we say, we have the electrical system, we have a pathway here, accessory pathway that provokes a tachycardia, we go with a catheter, blump, we stop it, that's it, we cure. That's it for adults, because the tools are made for adults. That was the case, we ablated early this January, 1.3 kilos baby. Tools made for adults, 1.3 kilos, baby, okay? Less than half a chicken, okay? Yeah, that's it. Using tools made for 80 kilos people, okay? We have a problem, you understand? Okay, so that was the baby. Just look at our hands. Look at the electrodes here. Look at the chest, the heart, okay? That's the heart. That's the heart, that's the electrode, that's the heart here. Okay, that was a tachycardia. When stopped, clack. That was tachycardia. That was ablation. Clack. It stopped. Okay. Using adult tools. That it was not comfortable at all. I have to tell you. Okay, but she was dying. We had to do something. We don't do that every day. We've done twice in 10 years. So, but we were not comfortable at all using adult tools for that. Monitoring can be challenging sometimes, and I will go through that really quick. Sometimes we cannot even put all the electrodes we would like to, because we don't have a space in the chest. Sometimes anesthesia that we are obliged to use because they are very small children does not help with the arrhythmia, so then we stop the arrhythmia when we don't know what to burn. It makes it difficult. Sometimes we have to use other techniques for anesthesia. Children helping us with anesthetic procedures, that's very important, because then we can give less anesthetic drugs. And we go to the heart using, again, tools which are 5, 6, and 7 French, which means 7 French means 2.1 millimeters catheter in a 1 centimeter heart. That's difficult, right? We try to minimize the number of catheters we use. We try to use one single catheter techniques to look for that accessory pathways. That should work. Okay. Okay, that's how it moves, okay? Catheters are stiff and the curves are made for adults. So we have big problems to get there, to get to the point we want. Then we have to apply radiation. And even we try to follow the rule as low radiation as reasonably achievable, sometimes it's not that easy. That's why there are many techniques, that fluoroless techniques that helps us. But once again, for small hearts, are not really perfect. These are some images from Carto and 3D images for arrhythmias that we try to use, using potentials, using that's a potential duration map. That's activations, so we try to to find which is the area of interest to burn. Voltage mapping, electrogram, duration that localize, which is the problem here, and try to focus on that. But that has, of course, an error we have to work on. And of course, after the complications we have, we need to improve. We need to try to use techniques that will raise down the number of complications we have in our patients. Well, I will go quickly through that. So, pacemakers, the big thing. We are using devices to try to control rhythm. And of course, they have become smaller and smaller, and more being able to use home monitoring system, which is important, but also some people is afraid about what are we doing with that. For example, Donald Trump carries a pacemaker. After he became president of the United States, we had a call, a revised call for how was it called? Cyber alert from all of our devices, because he made all the companies put some software to not being able to be attacked or hacked the pacemakers from a remote place, okay? So all of our patients received a recall. Can you imagine that? You know, all the patients knocking on the door saying, oh, receive this alert, cyber alert, okay? Because he made, you know, the companies do something to receive these cyber alerts for all the pacemakers in the world, okay? That was big. Leadless pacemaker are made for adults again. If we try to think about putting a leadless pacemaker which is implantable but not explantable, means that if I put it in a small baby, I will have to but implant new, more and more and more during the lifetime, because we cannot explant it now. I hope that companies will improve that so they are at least more explantable or at least more durable. That's the big problem. So nowadays, leadless pacemaker are not a solved problem in pediatric populations. But we have other leadless devices like leadless ICDs that we can implant under the skin and we can use for that. Once again, not suitable for children. Why? Because they are that big, okay? Okay, we have other problems. And what's the big thing now? It's trying to pace fetuses with AV block. And there are many, you know, first line or first stage publications on fetal pacemakers that are trying to improve these fetuses' life expectancy, because it's a big, big problem. We have a problem with duration, and it's not solved. Probably companies are not interested to have long durations, because then you don't exchange the device, okay? But we try to have something charged from the outside, but it's not still yet in the market. And finally, we have gene therapy there. So, and I need 5 more minutes. Gene therapy would help us. We don't know. We have started with gene therapy for some heart problems. If we change some genes, we may change it, but not focused on the problem. We will have a new disease as well. So now everything is, no, not everything, but big part of it is directed to gene therapy in our field, and we will see what's going on in the next years. So finally, which are my dreams? And that's my prayers for you. Which is the future for pediatric EP? I think that whatever we do, whatever we describe, whatever we discover, it has to be easy and teachable. There's no point on creating something that only one person or one team can use. It has to be patient-friendly. Whatever we do, it has to be thought, meant for also for those children that need it, not only for adults. And finally, it has to be universally applicable. There's no point on being able only to reach the first world. It has to reach everyone in this world. So it has to be cost effective. So the idea is to normalize our patient's life, and that's very important, and that's what that's all about. Okay. So I have exposed, my shiny glitter world, even with nice rainbows, and I'm asking for unicorns. I know unicorns don't exist, but please, can you create it? Can you at least fake it? And I will make it. That was my girls help me. That's the part of my girls help me to do for this presentation. At least make something as unicorn as possible, okay, in our worlds, because we really need it. This is part of the team, which is, I'm really proud of it. And this is my email that I will be really happy to share thoughts and findings that you can offer to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very nice overview. Actually, also talking about sudden cardiac death, I want to remind everybody, Philip is sitting there and he will be teaching CPR in the next days. So everybody that wants to learn CPR, especially for engineers, it's not quite common. So Philip is a cardiologist. Tomorrow morning, you will see, you can ask information with him if you haven't subscribed yet. So thank you very much for this overview. Maybe just a few questions to start. We don't have a lot of time, but I think the discussion is important. One of the things that you say is you have these implantable devices, these reveal devices, and if you leave that in for a couple of months, maybe, or
3 years.
Or 3 years, it's like, so you have 3 years of ECG data. What the hell do you do with it?
Ask Medtronic for that. Actually, you don't believe it, but we have set parameters, so it reads everything, but it records if it goes below a certain heart rate, above a certain heart rate, or there is something freaking inside between those levels, or if the patient pushes a button. Then we can go through the webpage to see the last 3 months. What it's before that, we lose it. I have tried to recover some of this information, and Medtronic helped me. So the data is somewhere, but it's not, it's not that available, and I can only have PDF. They are intelligent people, They have all this amount of data. Now, what do they sell? I mean, is someone from Medtronic here? Oh, fuck.
Okay, you can go out for a moment.
Okay, I'm not going to a congress anymore, I see. Okay, the thing is that what they sell now, I'm sorry, but what they'll sell now, it's a guy who reads whatever you think so that you can get rid of all the artifacts, all the nonsense thing that we record, all the alerts that we are not interested in. So they sell this service because we have so many alerts. I have this email address that arrives at my phone that I don't even open now because today it's bank holiday here, but it's not bank holiday because it's Monday, like for Medtronic, and I receive probably 45 alerts, okay, emails from patients, recordings. So what do they do for that? Just ask your colleague. But I think this is great information. This is, this is amount of information that it's there, and it's not suitable for us. They have it. Well, have you something to say?
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. Now, maybe one other thing also, which I think is quite relevant for people here also, is like when you talk about treatments of, for example, channelopathies, it's like now you didn't show it, but many of us will probably know that now Brugada syndrome you can try to treat with ablations also.
Yeah, actually some of the slides were for that.
It's a little bit a contradictio in terminis, no? It's like you have a channelopathy, which is a genetic disease that you somehow, with ablation, magically can solve. Is there something that we are missing, or what's going on?
Yeah, but actually hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is also genetic, and there is a structural disease. I think that the basis of that, and I have a very nice talk of another hour about anatomical substrate of Brugada syndrome, is that I think the imbalance of current, ion currents from epicardial to endocardium provokes local desynchrony that provokes fibrosis, that provokes something suitable to be burned. And that's it. Don't tell my uncle that, but
yeah.
I really think there is an
Because if we
anatomical
want to
reason.
model this, for example, is it enough to model the channels, or do we say we really need to go to mechanics and look at what's going on and things like that? So maybe things are not as simple as we currently perceive in some ways. No?
No, and I think that, you know what, I have not extended on Brugada syndrome, but Brugada syndrome first patients, 3 of the first 8 patients that were described in 1992 were children. When a disease is described, what we see at the beginning is the very tough cases. Those are really that kill a lot. So, of course, they were described in children because they were not able to overcome to adulthood. They died before, or they had a lot of arrhythmias before. What we see in pediatrics, when we see a terrible case of Brugada syndrome, it's very naughty. We have, structural abnormality, mechanical dyssynchrony. It's awful hard. So I think those cases should be the ones suitable for deep study on mechanics of the heart, cardiac mechanics, because those are, the big ones. Because what we have, I think there are 2 types of Brugada syndromes: the ones that really kill you when you are really young, and the ones that you are just a gene carrier, or maybe if you are given a drug that provokes it, like ashmalin or a sodium channel blocker, that then you see it. That's another type of disease. So I really think that our patients, my really big Brugada patients, the ones, the disaster ones, they don't make it to poverty. They have horrible heart structure, and
so
I'm more than welcome to study them.
So to understand
deeply.
it better, indeed, we maybe have to start simulating pediatric patients rather than some others.
The problem is they have an ICD, and when we try to do an MRI, even it's compatible. It's a disaster.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Wait for the microphone, please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for an interesting talk. And if you don't have ECGs, like you just have a PDF, then how you are going to investigate different features from ECG just for visualizing? But it can be some errors and so on. So, or you are using some tools.
We do visualization because, we are doctors. We are short-minded. We are not engineers. And I'm really honest on that. We say we have a problem, we see the ECG, okay, let's try to find a solution, and we forget about that possible machine learning, blah, blah, blah. Since I met Bart, my life just changed, my mind changed a little bit. But I try to ask for this kind of word that I did not know before. It was raw data, He taught me that. I really think that companies are really lucky that we, doctors, are the users of those tools. If we were engineers, I think they would present the product very differently, to be honest. That's why we need cooperation. We need collaborative work in order to explode all this information. I follow 350 patients home monitoring. I have 350 patients home monitored. Every day I receive information by myself. I'm alone on that, I cannot go through the road that. I cannot go. I just say, okay, alert, problem, no problem, artifact, whatever. Okay, I need to call the child to come now. I need to call the child to come tomorrow. And I say, okay, this is nonsense. I will see the child in 6 months. That's my life. So I cannot go through all that. And that's important.
Okay, and actually I'm one of the few doctors here. Unfortunately, not in Europe. Okay, and thank you for your presentation. So you highlight the importance of arrhythmogenic substrates for the arrhythmias in your presentation. So, and the substrates change during the development.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if there are any arrhythmias which only occur at a certain time of development, but which naturally cure by itself without any treatment. So what do you think about it? Is there?
Yes, actually some of the, instead of, if we were born before 40 weeks of gestation, if we were born at 35 or 30 or 25, we would have a lot of accessory pathways. If we go to embryology of the heart, there are, at the beginning, the heart is a tube, then it folds, and then it folds again, and there are a lot of electric connection there that they disappear, and we have only one left, okay? Sometimes there are newborns, even they are at term, that they have many accessory pathways, and some of them, they disappear. That's why we only go for ablation of these newborns if they are really ill and we cannot control with drugs. Because we know that some of these accessory pathways will disappear after 1 year of age. So yes, there is a maturity thing going on. So it makes it even more complicated because you don't know which ones will disappear and which ones will not.
So, okay, 2 short questions. Well, one of them is, have you tried to look into the animal models? So in animal models, we have the rats and mice. Obviously, we use smaller tools as well. So any type of tools developed for animals, can they be used in pediatrics?
Well, actually, normally people who work with animals, small animals, they ask us what to do, and they ask for, and they do some things that, for example, cannot be applied to humans, like, for example, doing ECGs, punching them, for example, okay? For ablations, animal models are dogs normally. So they are not that small. And normally there are like 35 kilos dogs. So all the products are tested with bigger animals. For cardiac electrophysiology, normally they use like simple electrodes which are not deflectable. So it's not applicable for our technology.
Okay, the second question is regarding the raw data. So we are in the European Union. It's a pain in the ass of getting the raw data out of the patients due to the European regulations. So any ideas on that, or?
No, not at all. You know, I just learned that word 2 years ago. So I really, no, I mean, to be honest, I think it's a very important thing what to do with that, because there's no way we can explode it by ourselves, doctors, and we really need to know what to do with that. And of course, there is a huge amount of information there, and actually AliveCore is doing a lot of works with that and trying to do machine learning on that, and they are exploring it very, very well, secretly, so far. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I think
Thank you.
we have to move on. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.